This is Chapter 10 in a series of media resources accompanying the Starting Point Conversation Guide. Storyline is a message delivered at North Point Community Church by Andy Stanley. Have you ever heard the story of God and wondered where you fit in? Listen in as Andy describes the greatest story of redemption ever told, and in the end, find your place in the story.
I have been a Christian a long time, and my dad's a pastor, so I grew up in church, and then I became a professional Christian. And one of the differences between me and you is you have to get up and go to a real job, and you have things to think about. And I just sit around and think about Christianity all day. That's just my job. You pay me to just think about it and worry about it. And so people will come up and they say, Andy, I found this verse, and what do you think it means? I go, I don't know. Go look at this verse over here. It's even worse. And they're like, well, you're supposed to encourage me. I go, I know, but see, I sit around and think about it all the time. So I find people come up and say, oh, I heard this terrible story, and how could God let that happen? I go, I heard a worse one. This lady came in, I tell them, they're like, whoa, my faith just took another. So one of the downsides is I think about it and turn over all the rocks and look at all the squiggly things, and what about that, and what about this, and could that really happen? I just think about all that stuff. And having spent so much time thinking about it and studying it and reading it and everything, I've come to the conclusion that for me, the greatest miracle, the thing that kind of really supercharges my faith more than anything else, having become a student of the Bible and been a Christian a long time, the biggest miracle to me isn't even in the Bible. I think the biggest miracle to me is the Bible. My goal today, and I don't think I'll accomplish it necessarily because I've tried before, but if I could push a button and I could just accomplish something great today, it would be that at the end of this message, that all of us, that our jaws would sort of be hanging open and we'd be going whoa. Because this isn't even a book. And one of the things that kind of miffs me a little bit, and I understand it, people go, well, every religion has their book, and the Bible is just another book. And I go, whoa, you're about to share some ignorance, and you don't mean to, but you are, because this isn't even a book. You know what this is? This is a collection of writings. Okay? This is not by a person or a prophet. This is a collection of writings, and here's the thing that your jaw starts to drop when you begin to understand it. This is a collection of writings that the first writings were in 1470 something BC, and the final ones were completed in 60 or maybe 70 AD, and they tell one story. Now you just got to think about that. Over 40 different writers, most of whom never met, didn't get in a room and go, okay, what part do you want to write? And why don't you say this happened and I'll do a part? And see, at the service people go, some men wrote this. And, you can't trust what men say because men make things up. It's just a bunch of whoa, before you go there. Here's the amazing thing. 40-something different authors stretched from 1400 and something BC to 60 or maybe 70 AD, one story. How could that be? And the story is amazing. There's murder and intrigue and armies and kings and queens and evil and affairs and true love and heroes and villains and money and rich and poor, and any theme that you'd find in your favorite novel or literature or movie, it's in there. And it was in there first. And it's all there. And most of it's history, and nobody's trying to weave together, a storyline. They're just telling us what happened. And you string together everything that happens, and it tells one incredible story. And the theme is the story of redemption. Redemption means to buy back or to pay somebody off in order to get something. It's to buy something back. It's the story of redemption, and it's the story of God. And most importantly for you, it's the story of God that creates the context for your life and for mine. And I'm convinced after all these years that we will never sense what our lives are really about until we understand the context. And here it is, God's story and where we fit in. See, at some point in your life, and this has already happened for many of us because we got to that age, but at some point in everybody's life, and I can remember as a kid hearing adults say this and going, what? I mean, this is just this isn't even a category for me, but it happens to all of us. At some point in life, you're going to kind of poke your head up over the busyness of life. and have some kids, or find somebody to have kids with, or find the kids, or get the kids to school, or, find a job, get a job, keep a job, try to keep that job, move from job to career, or, think about the future, or find a car, or find, all that busyness of life. Every once in a while, at some point in life, we all kind of poke our head up over it and go, what am I doing? What is this about? I mean, where is this going? Is there just these bookends of you're born and you die? And you don't think about that when you're like 16. But at some point in life, you pause just long enough to go, is there and use that P word, is there like a purpose to this? Is this going anywhere? And there's no real clear answer. And in fact, you talk to people and their answers aren't emotionally satisfying. So we just go, oh, what the heck, on with the show. And we kind of just, go back to work, or call somebody up, or try to get a date, or, get another job, or sell something else. We just kind of go back to it. And then, you're on vacation and you're sitting by the sun and the sunset, and it's just beautiful, and you're overcome with the majesty of a sunset. And here comes that question again. What is this about? Or you're at the lake and then you're fishing, you're all by yourself, and you're thinking, this is just like, there's something more, but what is it? Or you hold that baby, or every once in a while something just kind of pokes through and you're forced out again to go, is there something more? Is there a purpose? Is there a context? Is this going somewhere? Or is it just circle? My parents had one and their grandparents had one, and then I'm one, and then I'll have one, and they'll have, is that it? Is it just circular, or is it linear? Is it going somewhere? And you see, you don't understand the purpose of your life, and I don't either, until we understand the context, until we understand the story. And it's not even your story. It's God's story, and it's awesome. And today, to the best of my ability, I'm gonna tell it to you. And if you're not a Bible person or a Christian, I'm so glad you're here, because this is going to be great, because I'm going to tell you the whole story of the Bible, so you don't ever have to come back to church. Here's the whole thing all at one time, If you've been a Christian for a long time and you kind of pick up the Bible and read randomly, and you're going, what's an Isaiah? And there's two Josephs, you haven't put it all together. This will be helpful. But my goal today isn't to teach you the Bible. My goal is, at the end, we would be so overwhelmed with the fact that there really is a story. There is no way a person could have manufactured this or pulled it off, because the authors never met. They didn't even live in the same generation. They just stretched out for all these years. And yet here's the story that explains why you're here. It's the context for your life and for mine. And I've come to the conclusion that you really, really won't understand or get any traction when it comes to understanding the purpose for why you're here until you understand where you fit in this story. Because it's the story of redemption, and you are the redeemed. Let me tell you the story. Here's how I'm going to give you 8 words. So if you're taking notes, you just write down 8 words. Or if you have a good memory, you'll know all 8. And then when somebody says, what about the Bible? You can just rattle off these 8 and kind of tell them the whole story. They'll think you're so smart. The first word is the most predictable one. It's the word creation. Because the Bible tells us how the whole thing got kicked off. And it's an incredible story, and it sounds like a myth, but everybody that says it's a myth doesn't have a better explanation. It's just, we don't know what happened. But the Bible says, here's what happened. That God created the heavens and the earth, and he created the first man and the first woman, male and female, and it started the first family. And 2 very important things happened that we often overlook, and this is huge for the story. The first thing that's important in this first chapter of the story is that God put a law, put a rule in the middle of this world. And he didn't have 10 rules, he just had 1. And the reason God put a commandment in the middle of this perfect world was to establish order and to establish authority. Without a rule, nobody would know who's in charge. And it was very important to the story that God communicated to mankind, I'm God, you're not. You're good, but you're not God. I'm the creator, you're the created. I'm the king, you're the subject. I'm the father, you're the child. That there was a rule, there was a line of authority, and the way God established that was by creating 1 rule. And when you read about that rule, it doesn't even seem all that important. And more important than what the rule was the fact that God had the authority to establish it. The other important thing to the story in this first chapter is that God did something that we really overlook that explains much of what you experience every single day. God said to mankind and said to Adam and Eve, I'm going to take everything I've created on this world and I'm going to place it under your authority. You are in charge of the world. It's yours. I've created it, but I'm placing it under your authority. So I will rule you and you're going to rule the world. And as evidence of that God said, okay, I want you to name the animals. Where do you start? They're your animals. I gave them to you. See, when you give something a name, it's a sign of ownership, isn't it? That's why we name our children. We don't let other people name them or let them name themselves later on, Many of them wish we had done that, but we named our children. And so that's a sign of authority. So God, this is so important. God said, Adam and Eve, mankind, human race, I'm placing the authority and I'm placing creation, this world of this creation, under your authority. Huge. The second chapter we're going to call brokenness. Because 3 chapters after, creation, or the third chapter in the book of Genesis, sin enters the world. And Adam and Eve butted heads with God over the one rule. Now, why in the world would they break the one rule? The rule wasn't even the issue. The issue was, who's going to be God? Who's going to be in charge? And when you're a kid, if you grew up in church and you read that story, you found yourself thinking, maybe like I did, why in the world did they do that? To which I would say to you, why in the world do you do that? And you can look at my life and say, Andy, why did you do that? Why is it that we go head to head with the rules that God has established? Why is it we go head to head with right and wrong when we know the difference between right and wrong? Why is it we have so many regrets? I don't know. It came from our ancestors. And so in the Garden of Eden, the first rule was broken. And when the first world was broken, brokenness permeated creation. Man's relationship with God, broken. Adam and Eve's relationship with each other, broken. Mankind's relationship with all of creation, broken. Because what they didn't anticipate was this. When they broke their relationship with God, everything under their authority broke. You see, the third chapter of Genesis explains, and it's not an emotionally satisfying answer, but it's the answer. The third chapter of Genesis, when everything broke, explains much of what drives you crazy in this world. It explains why bad things happen to good people, why good things sometimes happen to bad people. It explains child abuse. It explains divorce. It explains murder. It explains crime. It explains disease and sickness and birth defects and all the things that drive us crazy. And we are so broken. We are so broken that when those things happen, who do we blame? God. Because we're so broken, we don't know the story. We don't even know the context of our brokenness. And we shake our fist at God, and God's going, hey, I'm just keeping my promise. I placed all of this world's creation under your authority, and as you go, so goes creation. So goes the world. You didn't want to operate under my authority? Nothing functions under my authority. I gave it to you, and I meant it when I gave it to you. In the second chapter, everything breaks and everything begins to break down. Do you know why husbands and wives, as much as they loved each other at the altar, conflict? Genesis chapter 3. Do you know why, even though you do your best and you work hard, there's conflict at work? Genesis chapter 3. Do you know why things that are totally inexplainable and just random acts of cruelty and random acts of nature, just randomness sometimes, things just go wrong for no reason? Genesis chapter 3. We live in a broken world, and it's still broken. Now,